Good evening and welcome to the 2021 Yom HaShoah Memorial Service. My name is Nami Echelov and I'm the CEO of the Jewish Federation of San Antonio and the director of the Holocaust Memorial Museum. Thank you to everybody who's participating in this year's service, our community leaders as well as our volunteers, and also to Temple Beth El for hosting this year's service. I'd like to thank all of you for also honoring our local survivors as well as all those who perished during the Holocaust. Starting us off this evening is Rabbi Mara Nathan, Senior Rabbi at Temple Beth El. Thank you, Rabbi Nathan.
Good evening. Tonight, we gather for our annual Yom HaShoah observance, still separated by physical distance and our screens, but also still united in heart and spirit, determined to honor those who survived the Shoah and to remember those who must not be forgotten. In the past year, we have experienced isolation, anxiety, and uncertainty, but also inspiration, kindness, and connection. Well, we understand the teaching of Elie Wiesel. Just as despair can come to one only through other human beings, hope too can be given to one only by other human beings. By the time World War II began in September 1939, Hitler and his fellow Nazis had excluded or expelled most of the people they considered dangerous, particularly Jews. Today, as we witness an uptick not only in anti-Semitism, but in anti-Asian hate crimes and other violence against innocent people, we're reminded of our responsibility as Jews and as people of faith to speak out against such baseless hate and honor the holiness in every human being, doing what we can to help battle the isolation and despair too many people experience. We have the power to bring hope and uplift to our neighbors, to our friends, even to strangers we encounter. We have the responsibility to not only look back at the tragedy of vicious fascism, anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia that swept our world then, to commemorate our people's past, but also to stand up and speak out for a world when no person or people should endure a similar reality. We know all too well how to remember the dead we have known. We are well acquainted with the rituals of how we commemorate the death of one person, though even those rituals have been tested and challenged in this year of pandemic isolation. But tonight on Yom HaShoah, as we gather, united as Jews across congregations, across neighborhoods, across generations, all of us are mourners. All of us recall 6 million precious souls. All of us are here to fulfill our sacred duty. All of us are here to remember.
In 1941, Zina Reichman and her parents were forced into the Bialystok ghetto. Because Zina was young and strong and good with languages, she was taken from her parents and forced to work on a farm while her parents stayed in the ghetto. The selection kept her alive. She had more and better quality food to eat. But she was separated from her parents, a young woman alone, isolated. She hoped she would see them or her 2 sisters again. She was isolated again when the ghetto was destroyed and she was sent first to Stutthof and then to Auschwitz. Her parents were murdered. Her sisters? She did not know where they were. And did anyone know where Zina was? Was anyone missing her? Looking for her? She didn't know. Zina survived the war. She searched for her sisters, for any family. She found her sisters, and the women started a new life in Israel. Zina fell in love, got married, had a son. And yet, surrounded by their love, she was still isolated. Israel did not want to talk about survivors in those days, and Zina wanted to shield her husband and her child from what she had endured. She was alone with her story.
This year has been a very challenging and difficult year for all of us. One of the most difficult things we've faced is being alone, being isolated, not being able to be with our family, our friends, our dear ones. And we have to use this newfound appreciation for being able to be around people, the blessing of being around people, to be sensitive to those that are always living in somewhat of an isolation, always feeling not so connected. We have to remember on Yom HaShoah, when we think about the survivors, what type of isolation they went through, the trauma they went through, being separated all those years from their family and friends, not seeing so many of them ever again. We have to be sensitive to how the isolation and how they are in isolation today, how so many survivors don't have an extended network to rely on of people that are checking in on them, friends of theirs, how so many survivors today, because of their age, there aren't that many survivors left for them to connect with, to see people that they've shared that experience with, that have scarred their lives. They just don't have those people to connect with anymore. They don't have someone to share that experience anymore. Now, we can't do that for them, but we can certainly be there as much as possible for every survivor that's out there. We can certainly make sure that we stay sensitive now that we know somewhat, a little bit, what it's like to be isolated, that we make sure that we reach out to them, to give them a phone call, check in on them, how they're doing, to bring them something, just to be there for them. Just to be there, because we know now a little bit of what that's like for them. I'd like to light a candle for all those that passed, a memorial candle or yahrzeit candle for their souls. May the souls of the ones who passed be bound up in the bond of eternal life with the Creator.
My parents both survived the Holocaust without ever being held captive in a concentration camp. I would say they were the lucky ones, but I think it would be more accurate to say they were less unfortunate than other survivors, and certainly less unfortunate than the victims. My father, Nathan Handel, was born, raised, and spent his young adult years in Chortkov, Poland. He experienced isolation when his parents and 3 siblings emigrated to Palestine without him. When he left his other relatives and fled to Austria shortly before Germany invaded Poland. When he fled from there to France. When he joined the Polish segment of the French army to fight against Germany and experienced severe anti-Semitism. And when France fell to Germany and he escaped to Switzerland, where he stayed until the war ended. He felt isolated from his people, the Jewish people, who he said, quote, were being slaughtered, and he was not only doing nothing about it, but was enjoying skiing in the Alps. My mother, Ilona Handel, was born, raised, and spent her earliest adult years in Budapest, Hungary. She felt isolated when she experienced anti-Semitism as a young child, when she graduated high school, when laws passed in 1939 not allowing her to go to college. In 1941, when her brother, her only sibling, made youth aliyah to Palestine, and her father and fiance were drafted to fight against the Soviet Union. When she and her family were forced to turn in radios and other belongings to the Nazis. In March 1944, when she and her mother were forced to live in the ghetto. And when her fiance didn't make it back from the front. Unfortunately, my parents' isolation didn't end with the end of the Holocaust. They felt isolated from other survivors because they hadn't suffered in the camps. And after moving to the US, from American Jews who couldn't relate to them. Isolation took many forms during and after the Holocaust, but at least my parents survived, and so did our Jewish people.
Good evening. I'm Mark Ingram, and I have the honor of reading the names of our living survivors. Eva Balsazar, Helene Banks, Micheline Cohen, Jean Finkelstein, Dr. George Fodor, Bertie Frank, Elsa Frank, Helene Ingram, Suzanne Jalnos, Ursula Kaplan, Vivian Kearney, Gerd Miller, Claire Morrow, Fred Nordhauser, Leanna Ornstein, Dr. Tibor Ritter, Anna Weiss-Rado, Micheline Freiman Rotblut, Dr. William Samuelson, Dr. Claudia Renee Stuhl, David Trachtenbroit, Harry Weiss, Rose Williams, Jeanette Yahiel,
Hi, within the theme of isolation, I want to say a few things about my mother, who survived 3 concentration camps from the time she was 12 through 14. And after being liberated, after Bergen-Belsen, she had been orphaned because her mother had been murdered and her father had been murdered, my grandparents. So in the orphanage, yes, there were other Jewish girls, it was in Amsterdam, who had also been orphaned in the Holocaust. And the isolating factor was there was no mishpacha, there was no family. And I remember her talking about the Yom Tovim, about the Jewish holidays. And on Yom Kippur, for example, which she had some memories of the Jewish holidays before the war in their home, it was a fast day, 25 hours of no food, no water, and just prayer. And, she had been fasting for 2 years in the camps, essentially, with no food and no water. And even prior to the war, there was food scarcity. So it just occurs to me that person can be isolated in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways they're isolated is when they're not connected to family and not connected to the smachot, the celebrations, and having even some of those things be a reminder of what one has lost and how difficult it is to restore and rebuild a life and a family after all of that.
Louisa Adar, Emrich Adler, Rose Adler, David Beres, Perla Beres, Violet Braun, Milton Braun, Christine Cohen, Sam Cohen, Binim Kukier, Esther Kukier, Zanwell Zwillich, Anna Levitt, Bella Yedwab.
Hannah Davidson Pankowski, Oscar Ehrenberg, Alice Epstein, Erna Epstein, Isaac Epstein, Walter Fine, Fela Fenstermacher, Rudy Fender, Jean Finkelstein, Lily Fisher, Hans Fisher, Ilona Messinger Fodor, Dr. Albert Franco, Elsa Franco,
Dorothy Goodfriend, Martin Goodfriend, Rudolf Haar, Eric Haas, Simon Hopkowitz, Israel Holtzman, Herla Holtzman, Ephraim Jaffe, Lola Jaffe, Ernst S. Kaiser, Ilona Hendel, Nathan Hendel.
Yitzhak Ledor, Rivka Ledor, Elias Levy, Ketty Levy, Roman Lubetsky, Lori Mayer, Max Menlovitz, George Meyer, Dubba Morgan, Vatzik Morgan, Elona Newworth, Stefan Jalnus.
Renee Pomper, Ella Raboy, Victor Raboy, Felix Reif, Ruth Reif, Max Ryder, Morris Rogal, Sylvia Rogal, Sam Rosenzweig, Edward Solomons, Dr. Stephen Schanzer, Matilda Rosenblatt.
Blanca Charlock, Hugo Charlock, Amin Simon, Regina Spiesman, Gus Spiesman, Dr. Ed Stern, Frida Stern, Heinrich Stern, Matilda Stern, Dr. John Stosenher, David Scharf, and Golda Scharf.
Helen Sichowalski, Herman Sichowalski, Lola Teicher, Bella Vainberg, Peter Vainberg, Elsa Weiss, Mike Weiss, Jack Wysoki, William Yachiel, Sam Zalkberg, Jack Zelnick, Carol Zanelik, and Joseph Ziskind.
Golda Scharf was my mother, and recently I watched her videos that were prepared by the Yale and Fortunoff Video Archives, transcribe in writing her Holocaust survival experience. It was very painful to watch and hear her suffering. I was enlightened to understand her sheer spiritual strength in her struggle to survive. And I made a list of isolations that my mother endured during that 6 years of hell. The isolation away from family, the isolation away from community, the isolation away from companionship, the isolation away from safety and security, the isolation away from comfort, food, water, and shelter, the isolation away from trust, care, and love, and the isolation away from fundamental humanity. My mother, however, was not isolated away from what she referred to as her God and her God-given right to remain alive. These God forces were with her, by her side, every day, and they gave her the purpose to stay alive and the ability to witness many miracles of providence that ensured her struggle for existence was worthwhile and beshert. Thank you.
Stille, stille, leu mir schweigen vor ihm wachsen da. So bin sie verpflanzt, die Sonne im grünen Satzung blau. Es werden Wege zu meiner zu, es wird kein Weg zurück. Ist der Tate wo verschwunden und mit in das Glück. Stille Kind, mein Zwei, nicht heut zersaft, nicht kein Gewinn. Unserem Glück willen sei son ihm sei wie nicht verstehen. So benbreg es euch die Armen, so bend vieles euch zusammen, nur zu unser Park ein bisschen schon. Stille Kind, mein Zwei, nicht heut zersäuft, nicht kein Gewinn. Unserem Glück willen soll ihm sei wie nicht verstehen. So benbreg es euch die Armen, so bend vieles euch zusammen, nur zu unser Park ein bisschen schon, kein bisschen Schein.
Hi, my name is Jeannie Wind. My mother, Ann Levitt, and my grandmother, Bella Yedwab, were survivors. My mother's family foresaw the future and realized that they needed to get out of Poland. And in 1937, they sent their eldest daughter, Fanny, to Mexico to join my grandmother's sisters. The plan was that they would follow afterwards, and they never were able to. My aunt was 17 years old. She would periodically get letters. Up until 1941, my mother's family ended up in the Vilna, and right before they went into the ghetto is when the letters stopped. Once the letters stopped, my aunt felt very, very isolated from the rest of the family, not knowing what happened, where were they okay?
El Malei Rachamim, Dayan Amanot V'Avi Yetomim. Al na tachshev v'titapek l'dam shenishpach hamayim. Hamtzei menucha nechona al kanfei hashchina. B'ma'alot kedoshim u'tehorim kezohar harakia me'irim u'mazhirim l'nishmotehem arivavot alpayim anashim v'nashim yiladim v'yiladot sheneherku v'nishchetu v'nisrafu v'nechaku v'nikberu chayim be'artzot asher nig'a bahen yad hatzarer hagermani v'gerarav. Kulan kedoshim u'tehorim v'gan Eden tehei menuchatam. Lachen ba'al harachamim yastirem b'seiter kanafav le'olamim. V'yitzror b'yitzror hachayim enishmotehem Adonai hu nachalatam. Yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen. God, full of mercy, defender of widows and father of orphans, be not silent or restrained regarding the blood which was spilt like water. Grant proper rest beneath the wings of your presence, in the great heights of the holy and pure, who, like the brilliance of the heavens, give light and shine for the souls of multitudes of thousands, men, women, boys, and girls, who were killed and slaughtered and burned and suffocated and buried alive in the lands touched by the hand of the German oppressor and its followers. All of them holy and pure. May the Garden of Eden be their resting place. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of his wings for eternity, and bind their souls with the bond of life. God is their inheritance, and may they find peaceful repose in their resting place. And let us say, Amen.
This evening, we honor the memory of the 6 million Kedoshim, the holy and precious souls who gave their lives al Kiddush Hashem for the sanctification of God's name. It's hard to imagine what Jewish life would be like today had we had our precious brothers and sisters and their descendants with us. As we reflect on the enormity of the loss, the enormity of the Shoah, we also need to reflect on the miracle of Jewish existence and our responsibility to keep the torch of Jewish life and vitality burning brightly. The growth and vibrance of Jewish life since World War II is nothing short of breathtaking. At the same time, sadly, there are so many of our fellow Jewish brethren that are disenfranchised, disinterested, assimilated, and lost. Our world has known so much pain and suffering. COVID-19 has taken from us so many of our best and brightest. May we merit this year to welcome our righteous Mashiach, ushering in an era of peace, health, reconciliation, and tranquility for all of humankind. Amen.
Imagine you are a 16-year-old girl. You've been walking for you can't remember how many days. You haven't eaten, it is cold. You just said goodbye to your parents and you know, but do not want to know, that you will probably never see them again. You will cover 450 miles on foot to get back to Vienna. You have to live on the streets and find food. You have to report to the SS weekly and stand in front of the SS officer. Finally, you get your visa, which is why you return to Vienna, but now you have to travel 650 miles from Vienna to Rotterdam in order to find a boat to America. You again have to travel alone with multiple stops and inspections of your visa by Nazi soldiers. How do you find the trains, buy the tickets? When do you get to sleep? When do you get to eat? How do you find a boat?
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביום אחד ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linda Grace Solis, Chair of the Holocaust Memorial Museum of San Antonio Commission. Thank you for tuning in to this important memorial event this evening, remembering those lost during the Holocaust and honoring all the brave survivors of this tragedy. With your help, we can light the path to a better world. Have a wonderful evening.
Good evening. My name is Richard Planto, and I'm the chair of the Yom HaShoah Committee here at the Federation. What an emotional and beautiful evening. Our Yom HaShoah community event always touches my heart. First, I want to thank everyone who participated in tonight's program. I especially would like to recognize our Yom HaShoah committee, Mark Ingram, Rabbi Ben Richards, Cantor Julie Berlin, and Maxine Cohen. We're very lucky in our community to have an excellent professional staff that supports us. I would like to thank NAMI, Kate McLeod, and Nicole Munoz. It was truly a team effort. The words seclusion and solitude are common synonyms for isolation. While all three words mean the state of one who is alone, isolation stresses detachment from others involuntarily. Over the past 12 months dealing with this pandemic, we have all had a small taste of what it would be like to be isolated. Like many of you, our family has been separated and isolated during this time. As difficult as it has been, we have been through nothing compared to what happened in Europe between 1933 and 1945. We have heard tonight how, through the use of propaganda and censorship, the Nazis isolated involuntarily the people who they felt were inferior, in some cases they were afraid of. We can never forget. We have to continue to learn and remember. I strongly recommend that you visit the Holocaust Museum website, their new exhibit, The Holocaust, Learn and Remember, Isolation. Our museum staff has once again provided us with an opportunity to learn and to remember. This beautifully done exhibit takes us through the use of isolation in carrying out the Nazis' crimes against humanity. I would be remiss if I did not thank each of you for taking your time to join our virtual Yom HaShoah event. We all hope next year that we will all be together in person in our temple, in our synagogue, to once again learn and remember together. Good night.